Great. So I'm very excited for today's event. Thank you so much for joining our Future Ready Educational Skills for an online event today with us. It's very, very critical for us, youth and all of our educators today to envision common futures and find ways to empower youth and educator during these uncertain period of landscapes. Since COVID-19 pandemic, transformational changes at both global and local level has in many sectors are happening at a unprecedented, like it's a rate of change. It's quite scary and quite encouraging at the same time. So we're sort of stepping into the unknown zones for all of us. I think that's how we're feeling in every sector and every corner of our art. So, it's very important to ask this question of what are the possible futures? What does this mean for Myanmar? What does it mean for APAC? What does it mean for globally? And what does it mean for our blue planet as well? And we have to start asking a question of how do we prepare our youth, children, parents, and even for ourselves, So for us, these questions are critical to ask and to have a dialogue, especially in the educational sector. For MYEO, it's very existential in our missions to answer these questions as we have continued empowering youth for almost a decade. And to answer these questions or solve these multifaceted, complex problems, we cannot do it alone. It's very critical to have a global and a local valuable community to solve these. There's even a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. This is what it is. So this event is more than just a singular event, but also marking the moment of connecting global educational EdHeroes community by opening our EdHero Myanmar Hub in collaborations with MYEO. So anyone in Myanmar who believe in the transformational power of educations and the critical values that hold in our community, please join our EdHero Myanmar Hubs together with MYEO and get connected with global educators and learn from each other to create an impact. I'll shorten our speech. Thanks so much again for our team in both EdHero, MYEO, our honorable guest speaker, which I'm very excited to learn from, and our interpreter who have given their valuable time, and also the guests. Like, this is Saturday morning and we're already having a crowd of enthusiastic educators in the rooms and youth to learn and grow to each other together. So yes, thanks so much again. And I'm very thrilled to hear and learn from the work of the global and local educational hero from the speaker. Thank you again. Have a great day and have an exciting moment. And please ask a lot of questions. We're looking forward to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ted. What a great opening, isn't it? So I would like to invite our host to send a manifesto cycle link so that our today participant can get attendance inside there and will get any other information from the participant. So what are we waiting for? Let's move to another agenda. Is our panel discussion. So I'm so excited about the conversation we have to get today. We have two amazing speakers to give the keynote speeches. I'm sorry. And what's special about those two is that they both are social entrepreneurs. Our first speaker is Suchetha Bhat. She is the CEO of Dream a Dream, a nonprofit organization that empowers children from vulnerable backgrounds to overcome adversity and thrive in a fast-changing world. She has worked both in the corporate and social settings. She started her journey in the social sector as a volunteer with Dream a Dream. The experience convinced her to get a postgraduate degree in psychology and join the organization full-time in 2010. Due to her success in driving the scale and strategy direction of Dream a Dream as a COO, she was promoted to CEO in 2018. Her pioneering work in developing their design frameworks has firmly positioned Dream a Dream as a top leader in the space of life skills in India. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Suchetha.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible. Okay, great. So I'm also really honored to be here as part of the advisory board of EdHeroes. So it's a double excitement for me, and it's my honor to give this keynote, even from that, from being an advisory board member of EdHeroes. So I just do want to take a moment to introduce EdHeroes themselves. We at EdHeroes, we are a global network that unites organizations and individuals worldwide. We have over 200,000 supporters from over 40 countries who believe that education is the best way to make a sizable impact on our society. EdHeroes' approach is glocality. Think global, act local. We are a global network, but approach things locally. And so we partner with prominent country organizations that have good relationships with the community and whose values align with us, and do helpful projects through our EdHeroes Hub. Our goal is to help organizations with good values and projects realize their projects more efficiently and create more impact. And that is why building hubs is a very crucial part of developing a close-knit network where everyone collaborates and education improves globally. And with that, I would also like to once again welcome MYEO, based in Myanmar, as one of the newest hub members of the EdHeroes family. Welcome, MYEO, to EdHeroes, and many congratulations on hosting this amazing event, and I'm so glad that I get to be a part of it. We at EdHeroes also believe that education is one of the most powerful force for human betterment, and we want to take everyone along, and we want to have everyone be part of that journey and manifesto with us. So I will be sharing the link to the EdHeroes manifesto, where you can also sign up and be a part of our goals. We do want to build a network, not only of organizations, but people, parents, educators, anybody who's interested in impacting education locally. So do sign up and become part of the EdHeroes movement. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about Dream a Dream itself. I am based in India, in Bangalore, and I'm part of Dream a Dream, which is a non-profit organization that is almost 24 years old now. We were started in 1999. And our purpose is to empower young people who come from vulnerable backgrounds to overcome adversity and thrive in a fast-changing world. We do this by developing their life skills through different approaches. So we have three main approaches that we do. One is we work directly with young people in Bangalore. We go into community schools. We have community centers where through our facilitators, we empower them with life skills through our own curriculums, through our own pedagogy. We also partner with state governments across India, where we try to influence the public education system itself. So we have currently partnered with 6 state governments, where we introduce life skills-based curriculums of life skills-based intervention into the school calendar itself, and through that try to impact the young people who go into the public education system in India. We also invest heavily in developing the field, where we look at how we can influence the ecosystem to understand why it is critical that life skills or thriving become a core part of education. Because I agree with what I had said before me, that we must ask ourselves the question of whether we are preparing young people for the fast pace of change and the complexity of the future that they are entering. So what can we do inside of education to do that? And in the last 15 years that I have been in the space of education, we've had 2 big insights which have defined my own work and the work of Dream a Dream at large. One is that when young people come from adversity, which basically means when they've had early experiences of neglect, of abuse, or of exposure to crime, conflict, when they've grown up in unstable home environments or political environments, this does have an impact on the development of children. So what happens is that when children don't find a loving, caring, supportive, growing environment, this impacts their ability to process information, to be able to take decisions, to solve problems, to focus, to learn, in fact. So when we look at children who are turning up to school, or when a group of children are turning up even to a community center, we can't think of all of them as equal in the sense that they can access the learning that is being provided in the same way. But that is essentially what education is doing today. We have a one-size-fits-all model that assumes that just because children are turning up to school, they have the same abilities to access all the information and the knowledge that is being given to them, irrespective of where they are on their developmental journey. But this is not true. A one-size-fits-all model does not work for children, especially when they've had developmental challenges because of the adversity that they have faced. So it's very important that when we think of equity in education, we are able to design our intervention, able to design our education to meet each child where they are at and be able to provide them opportunities which meet their needs, and is not based on what we think is the curriculum or the syllabus that has to happen, but really is designed around the learner and where they are at. So that is one of our big insights, which we integrate whether in our direct programs or in the interventions we are designing for the public education system. And the second big insight we've had, which also informs our work significantly, is that while we might design for direct programs for children and where we might put a lot of intention and thought into making it more equitable to meet the child where they are at, there is also a system of barriers, systemic barriers that come in the way of children being able to thrive. The social identities of children, depending on the class, caste. In India, caste is a big indicator of social position. So whether it's the caste, whether it's their sexual orientation, whether it's just their appearance, there are so many barriers that come in the way of children being able to thrive. So we have seen that even though we empower children with life skills, when they finally go into the job market or they finally become adults and are making choices around relationships and families, these systemic barriers push them back. They push them back into poverty. They push them back into relationships of abuse. They push them back into, being unemployed or being becoming a part of a gang or, going back to violence. So it's also important that while we empower children, we also look at what are the systemic barriers that are stopping young people from thriving, and how can we change systems itself to become more inclusive, to provide dignity to young people. So which is why when we work with state governments or when we are working in the public education system, we are also looking at that lens, that how do you work across the system, across stakeholders, whether they are at a district level, a state level, or at the political level, to become more open and become more inclusive of different children and the backgrounds that they come from. So that has been, our journey of Dream a Dream in the space of education and equity. And I would love to talk more after Moni. I think we do have a question and answer session where I could go into the details of our programs and what exactly we do. I would be happy to answer further questions on that. But with that, over to Chow. I wish you, again, everybody here, a great event. I do hope this is a great learning experience for you. And because I was part of the design, I can vouch for the fact that we have tried to bring in different voices, different experiences, both from the global context as well as the local context of Myanmar. And we are hoping to bring together this conversation about the future of education itself with all of us together. So we look forward to your participation and interaction throughout the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Suchetha, for your valuable speech. I'm sure that participants will get a lot of insights and learn a lot from you too. So our next speaker is Mr. Moni Siv. Moni is the CEO and founder of Teach For Cambodia. She is a local non-profit organization that hires outstanding young Cambodians and develop their leadership skills in service to rebuilding their nation through partnerships with the private and public sectors. Moni was named the California New Century Scholar by the Coca-Cola Scholars Foundation in 2009, an honoree of the 4B study and the 30 Asia for Social Entrepreneurship in 2019, and an Obama leader by the Obama Foundation 2019. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Moni.
Hi, education heroes, Myanmar. I'm really honored to be here, and especially to share thoughts and inspiration, also learning about future-ready education and skill as a themes. So before I choose education as my lifetime commitment. I was actually trained to be a biologist. But during college, when I go to university, I mean, my life has always about wanting to change the world, wanting to create something that is so big that can dramatically change things. But then when I searched through my heart, and I learned that because I'm come from a bit of a divorced like families and a bit struggling mom growing up, the first in my family to go to college, I realized that education changed my life. It was that teachers and that school leaders and my mom who investing in my own belief in me so much as when I was a young person growing up, and that sort of kept me going. When I searched through that and I sort of looking at like, okay, how do I want to spend the rest of my life doing? After university, then I decided to actually join Teach for America and became teachers before all of this. And at that time, I was thinking that, my God, what is education? And then when we talk about education, we talk about how much the power of education, how it's built community and how it's healed community. Education prepare kids for the future, but also how education is also failing all of us. Oh my God, what is this? We always think about education as something so abstract, as a bigger things. But for me, from a perspective of a former teachers, I think education is just this relationship between adult and our children in that classroom. Adult including teachers, school leaders, but also parents, families, sort of like our collaboration as a community around these kids. These are the things that can change kids' life. These are the things that are gonna prepare kids for the future. Like kids, especially kids growing up in poor communities, what they need the most is adults who deeply believe in them. Not just believe, but also show up for their success, and cares about them, provide them the education that they need. And so I see the need for more adults who say, I would like to be that person to change kids' life, and I want to sort of do something that is transformational in the classroom. And that is at the center of Teach for Cambodia core approaches. We recruit really passionate, really committed young leaders in Cambodia, and we convince them that educational inequity is the most important problem that we as young people can solve. And I want to make that as the most important problem and challenge my own young leaders from a diverse background to sort of solve. So we recruit them and then creating a leadership program for them to teach for 2 years, to learn about themselves, to learn about communities, to having that deep understanding about what it takes to shape a system for that future. And then when we talk about future ready and education and skills and that future of work, oh my God, that's give me a lot of like thinking. That is like the topic I've been like, my team and I, we don't have full answer in terms of what is the right solution, but I think at the core solution is multi-stakeholder approach that all of us need to come together. And so when at Teach for Cambodia, when we think about future of work, all of us the first word coming to our mind is change, fast change. So it's sort of this future seem to characterize by uncertainty, tons of complexity, and influenced by fast evolving technology. A lot of things can be automated. And so we need to think about what else that cannot be automated, constant shift in how people want to live, constant shift in terms of how we want to work, and also constant shift in terms of how we learn. And while I deeply believe that every child, regardless of how much their parents earn, they have enormous potential. But our education system at the moment is, in my country and maybe around the world, we are not setting up in a ways that provide kids with the education support and opportunity for that future that they're gonna soon inherit. And so we have seen in Cambodia that there are 5 sort of factors that sort of deep challenge in terms of preparation kids for that future. One is the lack of career guidance. We have not seen young people seem to have high demand for I really need guidance, but then they seem to lack opportunity, especially you were born in the marginalized groups. That is seem to be the first thing that we have seen as a challenge. The second things that we have seen as a challenge is this: kids really have limited exposure to skill development. And third one is we have seen a tremendous sort of challenges around inequity. And so where you go to school and which family you born seem to predict your educational outcome and life opportunities. And disadvantaged groups seem to be less likely to take any career development curriculums and those kind of things. And then under-resourced schools, when we want to do something like high-tech in the school and community, but then when we reality check, some schools don't even have electricity and water and those kind of really under-resourced. And last one is just that the future seems to mark by these global challenges, whether it's environments and displaced population, there seem to be more and more challenges. And that seem to be the challenges that we at Teach Company have seen. But then it's also our role to sort of developing students to be these, to lead in the future. And for us on the ground, we have seen kids in Cambodia, especially, all these conversations, we have seen 5 needs to prepare kids for the future. One is kids need to have this outcome called connectedness, awareness, mastery, agency, and well-being. And we see this as 5 things that seem to be broadly high needs. Connectedness is ability to actually value and learn from others in a collaborative ways for broader goods. For example, compassion, empathy, global mindedness are all, for us, it means connectedness. Awareness is the ability to be aware of inequity and opportunity around you and your strength and your challenges and your identity and things like that. And mastery is the ability to sort of make good decisions, having knowledge and skill and critical thinking to move, to make good judgment and sound judgment, right? And agency is the ability to take independent and collective action together, such as creativity, problem solving, curiosity, growth mindset. Those are all encompassed in agency for us. And well-being is that kids need to feel healthy and having both good mental health, right? A sense of belonging, a sense of curiosity, and curiosity really help you a lot with constant learning and good well-being. And so we have seen that, and then through talking with our teachers, alumni, and students, I think the question that we sort of emerged for us is, how do we better support our students so that they can and lead that future? And what are the examples that we have learned, that we pilot? What do we learn? What have we learned from a multi-stakeholder approach? Those kind of things that I'm happy to sort of share further today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moni, for your valuable speech. I'm so grateful for your part in this event. So we have a question from the participants too. So let me ask a question for Ms. Suchetha. It is, why the education is very important for the youth and how education is helpful for the youth? Could you please answer this for us?
So it's a very fundamental question. It's not something you don't think about. You almost take for granted, right? You almost take for granted that education is something that's necessary for all youth. But in this context, I will say that especially when we talk about, so one is the distinction between education and learning. Learning is just a part, right? All children just learn. So it's not something that we give or provide. It's just that all children learn. And the way we have designed learning today is it happens inside of a system, which we call as the education system. So one is that to differentiate learning and education. Learning can't be stopped. Children inherently just learn. So when we're talking about education, then we're talking about going to school, getting a degree, graduating from college. So that's the education system that I'm talking about. And I find that the reason that's important right now, especially in a country like India, where we have about 130 million children who live in poverty. Now, what is an intervention that you can provide to these children so that they can break the cycle of poverty, they can break, the cycle of adversity and all the challenges that they're facing, is through learning. And to provide opportunities for learning, we need a system where they can all come. So for me, an education system really is almost like an enrollment, where children can enroll into some kind of a system where we can get access to them. And by we mean the government, the nonprofits, community workers, anybody who can provide them an intervention so that they can develop the skills to break the cycle of poverty. So for me, education then becomes a means where children, through developing, one is definitely their academic understanding of the world and the careers they want to choose, but also developing the life skills that Moni said, whether it's creativity, ability to solve problems, ability to take decisions. So they can develop these skills that they need to be prepared for life. So the education is a system where we can get access to children to develop these skills, which doesn't happen otherwise unless there is an intervention and we're able to enroll children into a system where the intervention can be provided. So when we're talking specifically about children from vulnerable backgrounds, it becomes even more important that education becomes a way for them to develop both the academic and the life skills that they need to be able to break the cycle of poverty and thrive.
Thank you so much, Suchetha, for your answer. So I hope.
But I wonder if Moni would like to add something. It's quite a fundamental question about why education is important. Yes.
Mr. Moni, do you have any further add-on? Yeah.
I want to say exactly what Suchetha was saying, is that schooling, the equation, it should be schooling equal learning, but that equation has been broken. Just because you go to school, it doesn't mean that you're gonna learn. And I agree 100% with you. And it's our role as education leaders to sort of bring back that equation, that kids go to school and they learn, right? But in terms of like learning, it's like learning towards what? I think those are the kind of, that we get into the politics of education. And then then we can discuss about who set those goals in terms of education. Is it the purpose of education something? I don't have full answer, but it's a question for colleagues and here to think about this. What are we really learning towards? And those will divide into sort of two main answer. One is for individual interests and goods, for you to climb your social ladders, to get the credentials so you can access jobs that you really like, and learning that empower you individually and youth to make decision, to inform decision, taking your own awareness and those kind of things down the road, right? So that is like the kind of learning that we focus on, that is a bit more individual empowerment. But then educationally, we answer as a society, then we get the different answer to that. Then youth is a part of the future, that you are not just youth, you are the future citizen of your country. You are the leaders of your own community. Then education will empower the community to move in a ways that is efficient, that everyone has different career. I mean, I don't think that society should have all lawyers, all accountants, and who gonna take on the lawyer, the diversity of roles that we all can play is so important, but then also to help us all that build that community moving forward. So, and so that is sort of my short, brief answer to that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moni. That's perfect. So, okay, so I have another question too. Like, he would like to answer Moni Siv. He said that he's learning civic education. After that, how can I contribute to the community projects and activity with the civic education thing? Yeah. Would you like?
I couldn't catch up with the question.
Yeah. So I will repeat it. I want to ask Sir Moni Siv, I am learning civic education. After that, how can I contribute to the community project activities with the civic education thing?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I hear is that you are learning about civic education, and after that, how can you contribute to community project activity with civil education themes? So there is a few frameworks that we think in terms of how you can think a bit better in terms of how you contribute. So, but at the end of the day, you need to center on what is your vision for impact in your community. You have to be so grounded in the vision of needs and what is the purpose of civic education in your community, which I wouldn't be able to answer. But I think I would give it as a question to think about is what is your community really needs? What is the goal for kids, and like what is your vision for impact, and make civic education that. And then for students, if you want to prepare them for the future, you can start thinking about, okay, so three areas at least. One is what kind of opportunity that you can enable students to explore themselves and their community through civic education. It's like exploration is important. And then two is exposure through that civic education. What kind of exposure do you want your the students in the community to be exposed to? And then last one is experience or practice. And so what kind of experience do you want to, what is the journey, what is the experience that these that you can use your civic education to sort of support the kids in community? So I have that broad response.
Thank you so much for the answers here. So, Mr. Suchetha, do you want to add anything on this question?
No, that's great. Thank you.
That's perfect. Okay, so I have another question too. I would like to know what kind of activities will the EdHeroes and MYEO host in Myanmar in the future?
But I think it actually, in a way, the question is the same as the previous one, in the sense that the answer is to do what is most relevant to the needs of that context, right? So at a global level or at an international level like this panel today, we can talk about the general challenges with education, which is around inequity, the social identities, right? Where you're born is deciding what your future prospects are. So some of that is true across the world and across the globe. And when we talk at that level, we can offer certain perspectives and insights. But what must actually happen at Myanmar and what MYEO should design really must come from the context of what is happening in your country, in your region, and what is true for the young people there. One of the challenges is especially with education today, and especially if you've had a history of colonization, is that it has become something that has come from the West and is more, is not actually tailored to the needs of the context and the young people and the challenges that young people are facing there. So when we do talk about the future of education, it's very important for us to change that approach, to move away from a standardized, it works in somewhere else, or it works in the West, so let's do it in Myanmar, or it works globally, so that as though there is something that can work globally for children. Those are some of the things to break. And the investment is to really understand what is the true challenge of young people in Myanmar, in the situation and the context they are in, and how can we design an education system that meets their needs and design and implement for that.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Suchetha. And I have another question too. So there are a lot of questions. So how can we make a good community? Yeah, that's the question. How can we make a good community?
Yeah, I think Moni should talk about that. Teach for.
Oh my God. I mean, community building is at the heart of our work. I mean, if some of you know the history of Cambodia and things like that in terms of how community was really broken, and the job of a leader is really bring community together to heal. But then when we design in terms of building even diverse community among Teach for Cambodia, I think there are 4 things that we need to be able to answer to build that community, but also empower our community member to be community leaders. So the first question back to our original question is that you need to understand that community need, so like what is the community needs? I mean, if you want to organize around community, you need to understand their needs. Number 2 is really like community, like what bring community together is this emotional tie among community that is so important to consider. But then community need to feel like this sort of sense of belonging, right? It's so key to us. And then the other one is community need rituals, community need traditions. And so I would talk to you, a certain community can feel like how their tradition is. And so the question mark is how you ritualize and creating that sort of things about your community, but then community need to have a shared purpose and share visions to really move forward together. So those are the kind of things that we constantly thinking about when we thinking about the community.
Thank you so much for your answer, Mr. So I have another question. That one is, how can the life of a person without having education? How can the life of a person without having education? How can be the life of a person without having education? Yeah.
Sure. Again, I think it's very important to understand the distinction between degrees and getting qualification and education itself. Children inherently are learning. So I know that even if somebody is in this forum, they are learning and they have, in that sense, they are educated. I suspect the question is more about qualification and what is the life of a person unless you have a formal qualification that can help you. I think that is what the question means. For us, at least in our experience with young people, over these many years, that qualification has over time become less and less important. While in some cases it does help you get an entry into maybe an interview or maybe applying for certain jobs, or even in some cases, the partners you choose, that there is an entry where it makes it sometimes easier. But essentially, we have realized that today the world is more looking for skills. Do you have the ability to think critically? Are you able to collaborate? Are you able to work in a team? Are you innovative in the way you solve problems? Those have become a lot more important. So we are, I think, as a society, moving away from more traditional qualifications to looking at more what are the life skills that a person has, especially in the context of a career, or especially in the context of a career. We are looking more at what skills does a young person have. So whoever asked this question, I would say to invest in that to invest in developing your own creativity, your own critical thinking, your ability to solve complex problems. So irrespective of whether we have the qualification or not, there is a high potential for success if you have the right life skills. But yes, I'm not fully sure what the question means. I'm just assuming this is what it means.
And to add on top of that, I agree 100%. The difference, but if I ask my family member who actually didn't go to schools, and friends who actually drop out of schools, and then young women and men who actually decided to drop out of school, which is very a high number in my own country. I think the difference is choice. So also the predictability of your future is quite clear there. So if you have a qualification, as Suchetha mentions, and I think it's going to expand your life choice, and it's become a bit less predictable. And when the world keeps changing and changing and changing so much, and if you get the quote unquote effective or excellent education, the difficult thing about future and change is the transition is so difficult. And so then the question mark is, how are you going to have that mental and emotional resilience and learning agility to change with the transition. And it's not about learning something new, but also sometimes having the mindset to sort of let go of what you already learn and know and keep going with that future of change. And so I would say is that if you have educations, then it's sort of kind of empowering education. Then you can figure out how to move into different transition of the future a bit better, and you probably have more choices than you thought you had.
Thank you so much for your answers. That was great. Okay, so I have one last question. Is that could you give any suggestions or advice on how should Myanmar students can experience in international education? Yeah. Could you give any suggestions or advice on how should Myanmar students can experience in international education? Yeah.
Moni, I'm not sure I can answer that. Do you have
I'm not an expert, or I'm not in the position to answer that question.
Same here. I'm not fully equipped to answer that question. Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to think of something.
Let's skip that question. So let me see, is there any other question or not? Okay, in the future, which education can influence all over the world? That's the participant want to know. In the future, which education can influence all over the world?
Which education? You mean from which country, I think? I like the ambition. The ambition seems to be, in all domination, colonization type of idea. But I do think that for us to be successful in the future, that is the piece we'll have to change. I do feel that the future is for us to have a new future that is not going in the direction of the climate crisis, the income inequity, right? The challenges that we're currently facing, that one of the key aspects to change, especially inside education, is the idea of competition. I do feel that because the education system today, the way it's designed, inherently makes us competitive and want to be better than somebody else. We want to do better than, my neighbor, my friend, the next country, the next education system is inherently why we've become so polarized and non-empathetic, and we're not able to meet the challenges of the world and the climate for the complexity that they are posing to us. So my response to that is to flip the question and ask yourself, which is the education that can truly serve the needs of young people in their context? So there cannot be a comparison. It doesn't become a comparison between the education system in Cambodia or the education system in India, but the question is about, is the education system in India meeting the needs of the children in India? Is the education system in Cambodia meeting the needs of the education system in Cambodia? And are the children learning to collaborate and be empathetic and be non-judgmental towards each other? Because that is the only way, for me, I feel we'll be able to solve the complex challenges of the future.
It's a very challenging question, but I want to give it a try. This is opinion. I think education will move more and more to support the marginalized groups and those who actually do not have access. Not just education in the future should not just focusing on the best and the brightest, just people on top, right? But I think that it will serve the middle class and also those who actually grow up in poverty. And my hope is that it's the kind of education that we prioritize as a community in Cambodia and others. And I also agree that the future of the education also more and more localized. And with that in mind, and I also think a lot about AI, and those new technologies seem to automate a lot of things. And I can only imagine that go into the future, like things like learning how to code and those kind of things might be automated too. So I might not put my bet on that. But I think the future might needs like people who can heal each other, people who actually bring community together, more philosopher who actually ask fundamental questions. Like you guys ask us a lot, but your question. Those are maybe the future that demands, that what are the things that AI and technology cannot do and only us human can do.
Good point.
Okay, thank you so much for your answers. Okay, so this question is from Ms. Suchetha. How do you deal with child adversity in your organization, Dream a Dream? Yeah.
Sure. So that's basically how the intervention itself is designed using different mediums. So one of the ways to develop life skills is to use the mediums of some experiential mediums, which create opportunities for children to exercise their life skills. So then we use arts as a medium, we use sports as a medium, we use stories as a medium. So through these different mediums, we have designed curriculums, and by the facilitator, we train our facilitators. I again agree with Moni when he made the point that one of the big change drivers is the facilitator, is an adult in a young person's life, a teacher, a facilitator, a fellow who's really shows up for young people. So we train our facilitators on showing up for young people, but as well as delivering the curriculum. And through that, we help children overcome adversity by developing their life skills.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Moni, and thank you so much, Ms. Suchetha, for your questions, for your answers. So yeah. So today we will have a 7-minute break till 11 p.m. and we will start our panel discussion one. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, and our participants. So thank you so much, Mr. and Ms.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Moni. It was great being with you. Bye-bye.